This is the suspension feeder envelope feeder. The concept of the feeder is to run envelopes continuously into a printing press. And by doing that, we are giving the press what it wants, and that's a continuous pile under its sucker feet. We fan them out and lay them on the conveyor. That's the key to it. That eliminates gravity and the weight of envelopes, causing misfeeds or doubles. First thing we're going to do is go through the instructions and setup on the envelope feeder. The key to feeding these envelopes is learning to read your envelope. What I mean by reading your envelope is the fluffiness, how much air is in them, how much they compress. Normally for anything fluffy, A2s, 6s, 9s, 10s, they're all pretty much the same fluffiness. We'll fan those out to the top of this rail going along the black belts here. Anything not fluffy, like your 6x9s, 10x13s, we'll fan them out to the bend line about a ½ inch down from the top of this rail. The key to judging your fanning is the assembly up here. It raises and lowers with feed rollers on it, and that applies pressure to your yellow belts to give the envelopes positive drive so they stay synchronized as they move forward. This piece will raise up above the aluminum crossbar, will be your gauge for how thick or thin you need to fan your envelopes. Ideally this should be anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch up, but as long as it's raising, you're putting pressure down. If you fan your envelopes too thin and this does not rise, it means you have to put your envelopes closer together to make a taller pile. So this rises, because once it rises, like I said, it's going to give your envelopes positive drive. You can put pressure down on them, on the belts below it, which is going to drive your envelopes forward. If you fan your envelopes too thick, what will happen is this assembly will rise too far and it'll raise up till it touches our rear jogger assembly. To fix that, all you're going to do is fan your envelopes out a little thinner. That means spacing them apart more. Now we're going to start by unloading the complete envelope feeder and going through a setup. I've unloaded the envelopes from the feeder so you can see all the mechanical parts inside. There's not much to do. Basically what we want to do is get a level pile in the printing press. And we can accommodate that with our adjusting rails and our side guides. What we're going to do is, for no matter what size envelope you're running, these yellow belts slide left and right with no set screws or anything to loosen. What you want to do is just place these where they're going to do the best support of your envelope. For most envelopes, your A2s, 6s, 9s, and 10s, you'll have them pretty much dead in the middle. And there is no other adjustment as far as up and down of the belt tracks. They're at a factory setting now, so we leave them there. Also with the black belts for the wider envelopes when you're doing your 10x13s, they are also movable left to right to support your envelope the best. I'm going to start by grabbing a handful of envelopes, and we fan them out on here, just like on a folder, except for in the opposite direction. If you just hold on to a handful of envelopes for a little while and practice with your fanning, you'll get to be a pro at it. Now we're going to bring our guides in. There's a gauge on here. We're going to put it at, for our number 10s, which is 4 1/8. Now you lock the guides down. Put your envelopes in there, squeeze them tight, then open up one guide so there's enough room for your envelope to slide through there smoothly. And we got the locks on both sides and on the top. We're going to secure that down. The next thing we have to do is adjust the height of our rails. These are our rails. We're going to pull them out to where it says number 10 on both sides. Then for up and down, there's a gauge here. And what we want to do is line up the top of the rail with the gauge. Now this is just a starting setting because envelopes vary so much, we will have to adjust from there. But this will get you close range so you can do some fine-tune adjustments. Now I'm going to put some more envelopes in the conveyor. Always fill up your entire conveyor before you start. And your envelopes, the fluffier the envelope, the higher you can go. So we're going to fan these out to the top of our envelope. Once they're fanned out, is even with the top of the chrome rail on the non-operator side. I always set up away from the press for the first time. Now we're going to allow the envelopes to come forward. And once the envelope starts to come forward, the end of the envelope is going to be resting against these rollers and these springs. So I'm going to put my hand in front of the envelope like my hand is the press, and it's going to come up to the height till the sensor shuts it off. Right now it's shut off at the sensor height. This is a fixed height. You'll never have to need to change this. And what your envelope should be doing, the jogger is going to be pushing them about 1/16 of an inch in front of these rollers. And only the top few rollers are going to be held forward by these springs that come up and lean forward, because the only important envelope is your top envelope. And by the time they get up there, the jogger's going to straighten them. You should have a nice pile with about a 1-inch stack in the front. Now from there, I'm going to turn off our machine again. We're going to roll into the press. Once we're into the press, we have a locking wheel down here. And we lock it and let the latch come over it. And that's going to hold you firmly up against the press. The next thing we're going to do is adjust for the length of our envelope. We adjust the length of the envelope by moving the machine forward and backwards on top of the stand. To do that, there's a crank at the back underneath your conveyor. And you'll turn it. As you're turning this crank, it's moving the feeder towards the press on top of the stand. And you're going to look for the front of the press where your envelopes meet the press. And you're going to just bring it in until your envelopes just touch the press front plate right up here. And the next thing we're going to move on to is the height of our feeder. By adjusting the height of the feeder, we're going to bring the envelopes up to the sheet separators. You loosen the two knobs on each side of the stand. And there's a lever here, which is going to raise the hydraulic jack up. You just pump it to go up. When you need to go lower, you just twist the valve and it brings the feeder down slowly. So right now, we're going to raise it up to position. So we're going to look at the front of the envelope. And we're going to raise it up to whichever side of the envelope hits your sheet separator first. Now right here, we're touching our sheet separator on this side. We're a little low here. That's the rails up front have an adjustment. That are these two knobs right here. So you bring your lower side up just by turning these knobs. As you can see, that's low. And I'm going to bring it up until I touch my sheet separator. So I'm even on both sides. Now we're going to turn our power on. And what we do is make sure we have a nice square stack up against the press and it is level. And then it's going to meet our sheet separators. So right now we're sitting ready to run. Now the next thing I do is finish filling up the conveyor with envelopes. You're going to fan out your envelopes, like I said before, till the top of the envelopes are even with the top of the guide rail. It's okay when you fan your envelopes to have gaps in the envelope this way. The thing you do not want to do is put it under so it goes underneath the envelopes in front of it. That is wrong. The feeder will not correct that. But the feeder will correct any gap, so it's better to have a gap than tuck your envelope under too far. We'll put a last handful in the conveyor. We have this addition to our conveyor. It's just a plate back here. As long as your last envelope is touching the black belt, it will pull it forward. That way you can utilize the conveyor to get the most envelopes in there. Right now we have about 2 boxes of number 10 envelopes in there. We're going to go over and turn on the press right now. Make sure your feeder is turned on. Now I'm going to turn on the press. The jogger should be pushing a nice square pile in the back, and only the top few envelopes will be touching these vertical springs here. The horizontal springs are not necessarily used except for stream-fed presses. So those ones that come out horizontally should just hover over your stock. Now when operating the feeder, always keep enough envelopes in the conveyor. You should not let your envelope run past the short guide. Always keep it full. If you happen to be distracted and not fill it, that's okay. Just fill up the envelopes where you can get them in, and when that space comes up there, your press will miss while the feeder's taking time to catch up for the envelopes being back so far. You do not have to unload the whole feeder. Put some in here, wherever you can get them in, and let them go through. And it will catch up, but your press will miss. I want to go over the fanning of the envelopes. Do not try to grab too big of a pile. Most people that are used to operating folders understand fanning. But what you're going to have to do here is to fan your envelopes out. Everybody comes up with their own technique. Here's the way I do it. I will squeeze it on one hand and I will bend it without squeezing it. Then once I get it bent, I will squeeze that hand and let go of the other one, and it'll automatically bring out a fan for you.